Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We may have a few other participants join along the way, but I really appreciate everybody joining today. My name is Brad Bush, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm just started a new business called Strategy for AI, and today is our first webinar. The goal of these webinars is to help businesses to understand AI from a human perspective and how to use AI better inside of their businesses. One of the reasons I say human perspective is I think AI is still taking a bit of a bad rap in the press. AI is like any other technology today. It's going to have bad things and good things be able to be done with it. It is a tool. Now, it's a very powerful tool, and that's one of the reasons that there's a lot of fear around it today. But one of the things I want to show you is that um, I believe that what we can do as business leaders is to humanize the technology, create better cultures using AI. And today's topic is really going to be a lot more about that. And in general, what I believe is that we can empower our employees to have better jobs and better lives through AI, which means that they can get rid of some of their drudgery and get rid of some of the repetitive work and be able to do more customer outreach and more helping the business improve and things that we all know as business leaders help our employees to really invest in the business and create a better culture. So I think these are things that we all can strive for and look for when we're talking about AI. As I said before, but maybe some joined, I've turned off video, so don't freak out if you can't do video or audio. I'm trying to treat the Zoom a lot more like a webinar. If you do have questions, put them in the chat. The slides here were created with AI, both the text, the layouts, and the pictures. What that means is that you may see some strangeness in the pictures. I left some of them in on purpose because I think that's a little bit of the fun of it. In fact, if you look really closely, this person has 7 fingers. I think I counted them correctly. It may be 6, it may be 8, but it's not 5, which is I think there are better picture models that probably would have done this picture better, but I like the look that the graphics create in this model of picture generator that's built into this program that I use. So I really do like the way it creates the pictures. So I left in a few of the funny ones. We may talk about them along the way. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, we're here to talk about the AI whisperer effect and why some people are naturally better at prompting. And before I go forward, I want to just talk a little bit about what prompting is, because we may have people that are a little bit more at the beginning of AI. So prompting is what you type into an AI model to get it to do an action. So it could be a language model or an image model, and you give it an action. So when you're typing into the chat of ChatGPT, you're prompting ChatGPT to do something for you. So that's what prompting is. So some people are much better at that. In fact, how better are they than other people? Let's talk about that. A Stanford research paper showed that for an average business, the best person who is able to prompt is 142 times better than the worst person in your organization. And that, to me, blew my mind. That is the reason that we have this presentation. When I read that statistic, I said, I've got to know more about this. So I actually used Claude to do the research with me, and we did a long research paper, which had, I think, 400 sources. It's 30 or 40 pages long, and then we boiled that down to an outline, and then I stuck it in this cool program called Gamma to create this neat presentation for y'all. I think that this is a real differentiator in service-based businesses. That is what we're going to focus on in my consultancy, and all of the presentations I want to be around service-based businesses. Not that I'm not interested in manufacturing, because I've been in manufacturing companies a lot in my career, but I do think service-based businesses have a real potential to change their businesses. Here's another interesting stat. 91% of organizations use AI, but only 1% consider themselves mature. And I think that most organizations are, if you ask them, feel that they're underutilizing AI today. 75% of the knowledge workers are going to are already using the tools at work, but clearly they're not using them well. So there's a huge skill gap. Again, I feel that this is a training culture adoption paradox inside of companies today. And so what we're going to talk about is how can you solve that problem? And specifically for mid-sized service businesses, it's not optional to fix this. I believe it's survival. You're going to have to pay these types of employees just a little bit better. AI literacy is already creating a premium to wages. But if you can use AI correctly, companies that are using AI correctly are with a strategic and structured AI program are gaining 340% higher return on investment on those AI investments. And some companies have seen up to an 87% improved margin. So what I have talked about earlier, service-based businesses are uniquely positioned to benefit from the AI because the core product is knowledge. So you have knowledge workers, you're doing knowledge-based tasks. So all of these knowledge-based agents and even just plain usage of AI and the structure of how you put AI into your company are going to truly change. So a couple of things, a couple of quick statistics. The Aberdeen City Council, this is just one I found online. They increased their return on investment by 241% using AI. Grant Thornton, big accounting firm, saved 2 to 3 hours per employee weekly using AI. So those aren't small numbers. I mean, in a big accounting firm like that, that would probably mean millions of dollars straight to the bottom line. So the real question for your businesses today is not, are you going to implement AI, but when are you going to implement AI? So that's the real question. So here is a pivotal slide in the whole presentation. This was an epiphany for me because I always felt like that AI training should be all about giving employees skills. I'm an engineer. Let's just teach them how to use the tools. But really, what the research shows is that it is a communication style and cognitive style, and it's much more about the person and how they approach the technology than it is about the technology itself. So these are statistical research-driven components that we could point to in personalities that make them much more approachable to AI technology. And the first one is agreeableness. So anybody that's more agreeable has a much higher predictability that they're going to be able to use these tools better. The second one is conscientiousness. And the last one is metacognitive awareness. So awareness of, how what you're doing affects what you're doing. So, and again, this blew my mind. So everybody else is going to be focusing on technology, and now you can focus on the human factor. So how are you going to do that? That's the question. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this, but let's talk about it a little bit deeper. Why do mid-sized service businesses have a unique window of a competitive advantage? First of all, I think the size advantage, I'll talk about that one on the upper right. The size advantage is huge. Small businesses can't afford it. Big businesses, as we know, get bogged down in these kind of initiatives. So medium-sized businesses have a chance to take market share, move up the competitive ladder against bigger competitors by taking advantage of AI. There's an industry advantage. I'm going to talk about Texas because many of the folks here are from Texas because that is my main market. Texas itself has a strong sector concentration of these types of service businesses: legal, consulting, healthcare, financial, many, many more. And they're perfect for AI-powered transformation, as we talked earlier. There's a talent advantage. North Texas, especially where I am, there's a huge pool of skilled professionals. Many of them are already AI literate. So we're in a sweet spot here in the service-based businesses, especially in North Texas, of being able to take advantage of these trends. So here's the framework I'm going to talk about, and we're going to go through several slides that talk about this. So how do you identify and develop these AI communication skills and a fabric of excellence within your system? And we're going to use this SCALE framework. The first one is systemic assessment. So how do you assess for these skills? And the second one is cognitive profiling. So not only is it a skills, but we'll talk about there's some cognitive profiles that help you learn how to train. And that's the next one. So you do not training to everybody in the same way. I have a few HR people on here and they will love this message. You have to train the person at the place that they are and in the way that they're going to learn. So we'll talk about 3 different styles and 3 different groups. You can't train everybody in their own individualistic, maybe someday AI will get there. But I'm going to talk about 3 groups that we can train in 3 different ways. And then we'll talk about communities of practice where we can make sure that that learning is sticking and creating a culture. And then the last one, what measures gets corrected. And as we all know as executives, and I think that we're going to talk about how do we measure this and how do we continue as a set of executives to watch this and make sure that it gets driven throughout our organization. So the first one, let's talk about how to identify AI whisperers in your organization. The biggest way is personality profiling. So we talked about agreeable, conscientiousness, and openness, which the metacognitive awareness can be kind of tied to openness, are 3 of the 5 traits that are measured in a very popular personality test called the Big 5 personality test. There are a couple more. So when you take it, which you can at thebig5test.com/test. That's the free one. Don't go to the main site because they'll want to charge you. So if you go to that, they'll actually let you take the test for free, and then you can get your own results, and you can see the 5 personality types and how you fit within them. And then you can see, am I high in agreeableness, consciousness, and openness? I was going to pull my own up, but I was high in all 3 of those, so I'll just tell you that I was, if you can imagine, because I love all this technology and I'm really excited about it. A great friend of mine, Candace, owns the company CoreClarity.net, so I couldn't go through personality profiling without mentioning her. She has done this for 20 years now, and she has a great company. They are looking at how do they move their company to assessing AI readiness as part of what they do. But if you want general personality testing across your whole company and how your employees can work together, I suggest looking at CoreClarity also. And so do that analysis, then kind of put your teams in communication style analysis. One of the metacognitive awareness is really how you think of things and think of the things that you're thinking of. And that's really how much load you could take through. And then the other thing you want to kind of look at, and this is probably more of non-empirical view, is really what's your current usage pattern of AI through your company? Maybe do a survey, talk to your employees if you're smaller. But these are the things that you can do to kind of really find your AI whisperers today. You may already know who they are, and you may already resonate with this agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness view. So the next thing on that scale was to capability. So this is your interaction capability styles. And there are 3 different kinds. These are sort of sit side by side with the learning styles or the personality traits. The first one is systemic explorers. So these are the people that are super high in conscientiousness. They're long-term outcome people, governance roles. You probably have a few folks that are like this, process-oriented. The second one are your intuitive adapters. Those folks are super high to their openness. And so what they want to do is get in there and innovate. They're probably hard to tie down to the day-to-day. They're creative problem solvers. You want to put them on your innovation problems. And the last one is your I'm going to get that word out. Your last one is the pragmatic utilizers. So they have a task approach orientation. They are very practical or oriented. So what you want to do is put them in your operational roles. So these archetypes came from kind of a meta view of very many multiple studies, 666 participants across multiple studies, and they came up with these three archetypes that you could put your folks into. And that really is helpful because the next one is the training I was talking about. So here's the kind of training we want for each of those: systemic explorers, intuitive adapters, and pragmatic utilizers. For the systemic explorers, what you want to do is give them advanced prompt engineering training and frameworks, teach them, help put them in the governance leadership and teach them about governance leadership, help them be the documenters, go document the approaches for the rest of the team. The intuitive adapters, you want to give them a couple hours a week to go look for the next AI cool thing that's going to fix your business. Give them that leeway to solve your problems inside of your businesses. And then finally, the pragmatic utilizers. These are your efficiency focused folks. So what you want to make sure is that they have templates. They have very structured training, templates, next steps, project plans. Maybe what your systemic explorers can do is lead the creation of those for you to roll out to your pragmatic utilizers. And just one statistic in the bottom, of the HR folks on the call will know this: one size training is 60% less effective than personalized approaches. So, and just from an AI perspective, you'll get 40% increased adoption rates. 40% quicker times to adoption and 65% better adoption rates. Again, I said it a little earlier, but start with your systemic explorers. Let them figure out the program. Let them be the leaders. Let them structure the documentation. While your intuitive adapters are over figuring out what the next steps are, your pragmatic utilizers are in the background waiting to use it all. Okay, the next thing is to make sure that you have a base structure to support this new community from the top of your organization to the bottom. And this can get tried, so it's important to do this with purpose. But internal AI communities are proven to make sure that you can get peer-to-peer learning, because peer-to-peer learning on these types of capabilities, especially when technology is changing, has been proven to increase adoption rates very highly. An example was Ally Financial, who used to be my servicer of my loan, which they were a great company, by the way. They've been named one of the top employers by Glassdoor over and over again. They increased their adoption rates of AI by 75% just through their internal community approach. So this huge piece of it. As part of that community, you should have the community members write prompt libraries. When they learn something, they should build a prompt library. Best practice documentation, examples, all of these things really help. As you find your AI whispers, especially if they're middle management, create mentors from them and create mentorship programs within organizations and across organizations to mentor your folks. Finally, continuous feedback loops. Make sure that you allow an open door policy to talk about how AI is working within your organization, because there is always going to continue to be fear around this technology. It is moving so fast. It is creating such disruption. I say that we're at the internet in 1995, where there was a lot of fear and consternation. I was there. I was starting a business around the internet at the same time. But it was nothing like it is today. We're at 100-fold already today. And so you're going to have to work your employees through that to create this human-based cultural interconnection of how you can use AI inside of your business. Finally, making sure you track the return on investment of your AI implementations. And this one specifically, how you're going to increase the AI whisper effect across your company. I think that you can do it through the normal business metrics. Are you saving time? Are the tasks completing faster? Are you getting higher quality, less errors. And you can do it on the right-hand side with revenue growth, cost reduction, customer satisfaction, employee retention. Okay, those top ones, any good business person is going to do those. Let's talk about the bottom ones. I think these are where we're really going to be able to measure it. Okay, it's how many people are using it. How often are they using it? We may have to do surveys to do this because we're not going to want to invade people's privacy and track how much they're using the tools. But I think you can get very good week over week, month over month understanding just by surveying with the same survey. How many hours last week did you use AI? How many hours last month did you use AI? Did it help you? Yes, no. It helped me on a scale of 1 to 10. And I think the number one way you're going to be able to measure it is, are you seeing a transformation from AI negative attitudes to AI positive attitudes? We're going to talk about that a lot more in next week's podcast, and I'll hint a little bit at that, but I'll tell you what it's going to be in a second. And so that is really exciting about being able to measure, and what measures gets changed. We all know that. So measure and figure out a way to measure, and it'll get changed. Last slide before we move on to questions and answers. What makes the difference in the overall program? The last point, measurement, is important. We'll start from the bottom. Continuous learning, we talked about it. A champion network, which I think is part of creating that cultural adoption inside of a peer group, and making sure that you raise those champions up, announce them at your all hands meetings, and make sure that you talk about them in your newsletters and talk about the programs in your newsletters. But the number one thing I think still that makes a difference is that you have a leadership commitment. So somebody on the leadership team is going to have to take this on, and I know it's scary, as the main thing that they can do to change the business, because I think AI is that important. So they're going to have to put that in their big 3 priorities for the year. If they don't have it in there, we're going to have to kick one of them out and put it in there, because I think AI is transforming all businesses. And I think it's time for one leader on the executive team to step up and have AI next to the name. Now, you don't need a chief AI officer probably in most mid-sized businesses or even large businesses today, I don't think. Although I'd love to be your fractional chief AI officer. But what you do need is somebody that's willing to step up on your executive team and take that on. So that's it for today, and we did really well. My goal is to do 30 minutes and 30 minutes of Q&A, or if we don't have Q&A, we can stop at 30 minutes. But that is the goal of these quick webinars, to connect you together with this content that's very humanizing of AI. So here's some things that are next steps with my company. We'd love to give you a free executive AI briefing. If you go to strategy4.ai, you can say book a complimentary executive briefing. If this also is going to send you this template out to this actual, you're going to be able to get this entire presentation, and I'll send out and at strategy4.ai, if you go to webinars where you registered originally, you can get the recording if you want to see the recording, or send the recording to somebody. So you'll be able to get the presentation and the recording. You can click on book for the briefing. So all of that's going to be available. One second, and I will talk about what next week's topic will be. I just wanted to make sure I pull it up and read it directly off of the site. So next week is going to be the AI placebo effect, when believing in AI makes it work better. So you can see it's going to have a little bit of connection into this week's webinar, but not exactly the same. But I think it's going to be really interesting nonetheless. And then a couple of more things that I offer as a business. We do a 4-hour half-day AI opportunity workshop, where we'll do a bit of training, maybe some of the same types of topics that we're talking about today, but much more about what are the tools that your business could use. So we'll have some pre-assessments, a workshop, and then really talk about what are the 2 to 5 key use cases for your business that you can focus on over the next several months to change your business. And through the next step, a 4-week implementation program, you can get your first workflow or 2 done as part of that. So we'll come in and help you do that. So that's just a few things that we're offering. We're willing to tailor our services to wherever you are in the AI journey. So very exciting about where we are. I have one question in the chat. So the question is, can you describe a use case or 2 with your company services? I just answered it. So I really do appreciate it. If there are other questions that I can answer through the chat. If you want to ask a question, you can pull up on the chat. And I will actually, since we don't have a ton of folks, I'm going to take off the ability to mute all. If you'll just give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to... Now people can unmute themselves if they would like to.
Brad, this is Greg.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Hey, as I mentioned to you, we're in the process of creating a large language model. So would some of the things you discussed today be most applicable to generalized access to, like, Copilot or ChatGPT, or would they be more focused on proprietary models, or both? Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
None of the research was specific to a specific model. It was really how people interacted with the AIs in general. So I think it's going to be applicable to both internal models and external models. I think most of the research done was on external models, but it was general research about how people reacted with these models. And so I think that as we go through learning together as a society, we're going to see more and more, just like we did with the internet, how these technologies affect our day-to-day lives, because we're only on first-order effects of these technologies. And the first-order effects are we have tools, we use them, and those tools give us benefits. But we are not even on second-order effects. We have tools. I'll just take the internet as for example. The second-order effects where we have tools, we can order books, and that bookseller becomes a seller of all things, and now we can get delivered anything that we want to our doorstep. That's maybe a second or third order effect of the technology. So we're starting to see some of the maybe 1.5 to 2 level order effects, but mostly what we're seeing is this tool does AI and gives me this result. So we're not seeing second or third level effects. And so people are just learning how to interact. And I think some of what we learned today in this training and what we'll send out, and you can review the data in detail. And if anybody wants the deep research, just send me a note. I'll send them the deep research. I'd love to send you the deep research with all the footnotes, and then you can go read all the papers yourself. I've read several of the papers. I think what we're really starting to see is that what I said before is this humanizing of AI is super important inside of businesses. Lowering the fear level, bringing up the understanding that it's a human experience, and how we experience it as humans is going to change how the technology affects the people and the business. And so we really need to work hard as leaders to understand inside of our specific businesses, how is that working? So did that help, Greg? Did that help answer?
Yes, it does. It really kind of goes to what you're promoting. That's kind of the usability as opposed to the technology itself. I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Are there other questions?
I think there's some in chat.
Oh, I haven't been down in chat. Awesome. Okay. What's the difference between an AI workflow versus just using AI to proofread your email and other types of? Okay, so there's kind of let's call it maybe 3 different levels. And by the way, these definitions have not settled. So if you go read on the websites, you'll get different definitions. But so you're hearing the Brad Bush amalgamated definitions here today. Okay, so an AI model is something. I'm going to give more definitions than Ted asks there in his speech. An AI model is something that's been built that will take input, prompt, and give an output. Okay. Typically, that's done through a chat-based interface, but it doesn't have to be. There are now multimodal interfaces to AI models where you can send it a picture and also ask about that picture, or you can send it voice commands and ask about things. So the model input can be many different ways, and the model output now can be many different ways. You can add, so now you could, let's just say, you can go on and voice ask, can you make a chart of the data that I'm about to upload? And so you could multimodal and get multimodal output. So don't think of it as chat to chat. So that's just the basic um, AI work, AI model, and an AI prompting. Okay. Then the second one is maybe an AI workflow or an AI agent. Those maybe be in the same, and I'm going to put quotes around them because these are the things that if you go to folks, they're going to change. So this is to me where you're saying, okay, and by the way, my 19 question survey is what I would consider an AI workflow or AI agent. So if you sign up for my 30-minute executive coaching, then what you will get is immediately an email back, and it'll take you to the website, and you'll fill out the 19 question survey. And that survey then sends your answers to ChatGPT for me under a really good analysis model. I've set it up to do an analysis model, and it analyzes all of your answers and sends me a summary. So I don't have to read the answers, which is great because then it helps us both. We shorten that time to get together. So when I'm ready to sit down with you, I have a summary of what you put in with recommendations from ChatGPT. So I don't take it, it's not the final, but it's a great starting point for us to start with. So that's an example of a workflow. Now, the last part, agentic AI, is where we're heading with fully autonomous AI agents that can make their own decisions. So they get inputs and they have constraints. And those are sometimes you might have heard the term RAG. So that's the input that you put into the agent. And then that agent can then use tools. So it's very important that a real agentic AI has tools. So the tools could be anything from Google Calendar to Gmail to your CRM. So they can use all the tools. You can get and put data into the tool, change, get, put, normal IT operations. And then it can give outputs at the end. And in the middle, it can branch and have structure and thoughts. And thoughts is a weird word there, but it really is sort of having thoughts because the thoughts are coming out of the jet of these AI models. So it sends information into the models, it uses its tools, it resends information into the models. You can have multiple agents all coming together, branching off, and then giving an output at the end. Whether that output is changing your calendar and updating a meeting request, or whether that output is sending an invoice to a customer. All of those types of things can happen through an agentic AI. And there can be what's called a human in the loop, and maybe we'll have other topics about this, where if you don't want all that to happen automatically, you could put a human in that loop. And then the human can then make sure that the AI is doing the right thing before it presses the final button, or edit the email or what. You guys have seen some of this now in some of the things that you use. Okay, when you say AI, are there a few main types, and how do they matter for business use? Well, I think I answered that pretty well in the last question, but let's just go through a few of the tools that companies are using today because they come up on this call. So large language models are, and I consider there to be really I would use 3 different large language models if I were using them in business today. I would use ChatGPT. Everyone knows that one. And you have to get at least the professional license, which allows you, it's $30 a month, and it allows you to use the main features, which you now can hook your email into that. You can hook for deeper research. You can hook your calendar. You can hook Gmail, Google Docs. You can hook SharePoint. So you can hook all that into it, and it can search through all that. Very amazing. And then, so you got to get ChatGPT, or you have to get Claude. And Claude is very similar to ChatGPT. It can hook into the tools. It costs about the same amount of money. The final one is Google. It's pretty much free if you have a Google account. If you don't, it's not very much. And it's Google Gemini. So Claude Sonnet, ChatGPT, all of these have different model versions, which can do different things. You have to learn a little bit about each one of those. Kind of settle on one of those. You got to get one of those tools. Okay, so that's a large language model. Then you got to get it. I mean, if you want to generate images, you need an image generator. A really good one still now built into ChatGPT. If you use GPT-4, pretty good image generator, you can just tell it to generate an image. It'll generate a great image. So that's a great another tool. And then finally, what you really want to do then is look at all of your enterprise tools and learn the AI features of those enterprise tools. And then I guess not finally, but then that was next to finally, I would say the next level, and it's more for your IT folks or your real technical folks or a consultant like me, who would be to start down this AI agent and agentic AI path where you can automate some of your workflows or automate an agentic AI to do some things that your people are doing. Now that's more advanced, but it's really where the money is. It's what your competitors are starting to do. And so that's kind of the steps that you need to be, and you need to have everybody in your company, you need to settle on one of those and buy an enterprise license for your whole company for Google, Gemini, or Claude, or Open AI, ChatGPT, because everybody needs to be using the same one, and you need to be paying for them so that they're all learning that together. That's almost a must these days. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, this was super and really fun, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I hope that everybody learned a lot, and I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. This was very informative.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, guys.